Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here today to talk about Inbox Zero, Headspace Restored. I am your productivity ninja today. I am Lindsay Calder-Recknell, and it's my absolute pleasure to be here with you today. Hi, Sarah. Lovely to see you. Lovely to see you. For those of you who haven't been in one of my Ninja Booster sessions yet, I am a productivity ninja with Think Productive North America. I have been with the organization for 4 years now, I think, and have been delivering productivity training workshops across North America for that long. This workshop that you're here to do today is my absolute favorite. It is just a taster of our bigger 3-hour workshop called Inbox Zero, Getting to Inbox Zero. Today, we are going to talk about what it looks like and feels like to, avoid email, why we do it, the psychological reasons for doing that, and also how we can change our perspective around email so that it is not quite the nervous system fight, flight, or freeze experience that many of us treat it like, myself included. If you haven't been too familiar with Think Productive yet, we are a productivity organization, but really we are about psychology before technology. We want this world to be a place where work feels like what we love to do, not just something that we have to do to pay the bills, to keep the economy running, those kinds of things. We recognize at Think Productive, we recognize that we are human, not superhero. And all of the things that we train, all of the technology and tools we use to support you come down to the fact that we are humans doing human work. Trust and kindness are our rocket fuel. Psychological safety is absolutely where we show up best. And that's where you can show up best in this space as well. So please continue to use the chat to share your thoughts, to ask your questions, to do feedback. I will continue to check it and we can engage in there. We are not just a for-profit company. We absolutely want to create change here today and every time we have a conversation with you. So looking forward to the next 30-ish minutes together. This is a webinar, and so you're going to hear me talk at you a lot. So please continue to engage in the chat so that it's not just me talking to myself. Speaking of those rules of the road, here's how this session is going to go today. If you've ever been to any of our free skill tasters before, you'll know that the format is approximately 30 minutes of content, some Q&A, and if I don't answer all your questions or if we run out of time, we will absolutely answer them in our Think Productive newsletter. So you will have access to that. You'll also have access to a bunch of resources afterwards. So make sure that you subscribe. When we get to the end of this webinar, there'll be a link and instructions on how to do that. Absolutely, though, put any of your questions into the Q&A so that I can notice them there and call them out throughout the session. We are recording this session, but of course, your faces, the comments, the chat will not be displayed on the recording, so you can feel comfortable about anonymity from outside of this webinar for sure. If you want to completely ignore the chat and just focus on the webinar, do that. That is totally cool. This is your session, and you get to participate in the best way for you. Any questions about that? Okay, let's get into the main meat of the presentation today. I mentioned that this is based on our very popular workshop called Getting Your Inbox to Zero. Hands down, this is my favorite workshop to deliver. It's a 3-hour, half-day workshop. In the session, you actually get to Inbox Zero. I know you're thinking that's ridiculous. That's bananas. How could that possibly be true? But I promise you, in our 3-hour session, there's working time, strategies, tools to get you to Inbox Zero, and you leave there feeling so good. So good. So today's just going to be a taster of that. It's just going to be an example of how you can get started on this whole concept of Inbox Zero. But why do we even talk about this? Why is this something that matters to us? Why are you here to talk about email of all things? Well, if you could share in the chat with me, what is your biggest email challenge? Like how is email affecting your work? How is email affecting your mind? I will tell you that I have 17 unread emails, not because I haven't read them, but just because I cannot even face the idea of actioning them right now, they just feel alarming. It's just email. But I think this is something that more of us experience than we talk about. So Gemma's saying in the chat, too many emails. Yeah, too many emails. Anybody else? How are emails affecting your work? How does it affect your productivity? Oh my heavens, Gemma's got 770 in her inbox right now, stressing you out. No kidding. No kidding. Well, I'm gonna start. We're gonna talk about how to get that 770 down to zero, what you can do in the meantime. Anybody else? Email affecting your productivity? Yeah, Kate's talking about taking all the time just to deal with them. Yeah, it's overwhelming. Well, the thing that I think about is when I action an email, somebody's going to action it back, and then I'm going to have to do something with it again. That feels stressful. That feels overwhelming. So, if any of this is resonating with you, you are absolutely not alone. Research suggests that email is still a constant major distraction. Research suggests that on average, office workers, so probably you and I, receive at least 121 emails per day, that we send an average of 40. Now, this is like average across a huge population. So if these numbers are more, which I suspect they probably are for you, at least on average, we're receiving 121 emails, we're sending 40 emails, and in an 8 hour day, in an average 8 hour day, we are spending 3.5 hours checking work email. Work email. That doesn't even count for personal email or if you have a side hustle, all of those kinds of things. Just work emails, 3.5 hours, 40% of an 8 hour day spent on email. Does that not just feel this is so gross? I would even suggest that despite growth of Messenger and chat and Slack and Teams and all of those different kinds of options, email is still a major constant distraction for so many of us. Still our main method of communication, let alone adding all of those Messenger apps and all of those the ways that we chat in addition to all of this. Oh, there we go. We know email is here to stay. I think even with the prevalence of messaging apps now, I think email is still going to continue to stick around. Um, Research suggests that in 2018, 281 billion emails were sent, all the way up to 2025, where 376 billion emails per day. How wild is that? How wild is that? So, why is email stressful? Like, beyond just the volume, the email, the what email represents can be really stressful. This is a mindset thing, a perception problem. So an email coming into your inbox has a potential meaning, right? It means you probably have to make a decision, and decisions can be hard. We can make many micro decisions throughout the day, and at the end of the day, we can run into decision fatigue, and email decisions can get extra hard when you're in that state of decision fatigue. There's also the idea of performance anxiety, what to do with that email, and will you do it right? What action are you going to take, and is it going to be the right one? There's also short-term memory implications of email because often we use our email as our to-do list. And so once we get that email and then the next email comes in, our short-term memory might forget about that original email, and that becomes stressful. The method of using these emails and what we're doing with them and how we're doing it can be super stressful as well. Anything else that feels really stressful specifically about email, not just the volume? Go ahead and put that in the chat if you have some ideas around that. Our thinking is that when we control our email, when we can control how we action email, how we manage it, how we perceive it, we can actually increase our attention and focus. We can actually reduce stress because we can increase our clarity. And ultimately, we're going to get more efficient so that we can get more done. When we can control our actions around email, this is where productivity actually kicks into gear. One of the things I want you to think about is that email is just another communication tool. It's the most common one for sure, but it's just a tool. You, the human, your actions and what you do with these emails and what you do with other people's response to your actions, that's what creates the impact. It's not email that's scary or overwhelming. It's what we get to do with it that becomes where we have agency and a sense of control. Try our best not to overplay its value just because it's the most common. We know that it's not the emails that create impact. We have this 80-20 rule. You've heard of 80-20 rules in all sorts of situations. In email, the 80-20 rule is around how 80% of email is probably uh, not useful. Only 20% of email is probably impactful or important. 80% of emails require no action, research suggests. 20% of your emails actually produce probably 80% of your results. So if you think of your inbox or if you're scanning through your inbox after this session, when you're looking through there, you probably have replies to meeting invites, you probably have CCs, you might even have some BCCs. You also probably have newsletters and email distribution lists that you're on that you need to read later or you want to read later. Maybe it's just somebody replying back, thanks, which is a nicety and, social convention, but also taking up space in your inbox. 800 low value, noisy emails for every 20 useful ones. Think about that as the math, the Pareto principle, that 80-20 rule. When you think about it as only 20 really useful ones, it changes our perception of email. Maybe takes away some of the overwhelm. So what do we do about it? Well, what about if we ignored our email? This feels scary, and a lot of organizations don't, on the surface, don't feel like they operate in this way. I'm sure you're thinking to me, uh, but I can't ignore my email because people expect immediate responses. For sure. Or what if they don't? Going offline, I think, is allowed. And I think if more of us push this agenda, it would become more acceptable and more mainstream. You absolutely might need to break expectations of others and your own habits. Think about when you receive an email from someone, or when you send an email to someone, what's your expectation of how quickly they're going to return your message? Is it 5 minutes? Is it an hour? If someone returned that email in 24 hours, would that be okay? I mean, for sure, there's going to be emails that require, or there's going to be questions you have or situations where an immediate response is necessary. But it also suggests that you're probably not using emails for those notifications or for those inquiries. Maybe now you're using Teams or Messenger or some other instant messaging situation as opposed to an email. I know for myself, when an email comes in, I want to reply right away. But what if we changed our expectations around that? Because I know that you're probably not waiting. You probably don't have an expectation of me that I'm going to return that email right away. Just something to think about. We know that the pings and dings are persuasive and we know they're constant, and honestly, they're addictive. They're super incredibly hard to ignore. Can we take baby steps to ignore? Can we work offline? Can we time block our calendars so that we're only checking email sometimes? Can we check our email 3 times a day for 15 minutes at the top of the hour? At the end of the day only. I don't know. I don't know what works for you, but can you give that some thought? Can you time block when you're checking your email? Breaking yourself of the habit of constantly checking email is a thing. That might even give you the shivers to think about, because how many of us sit down at our desk and the very first thing we do is check email? I'm that guy. I absolutely am that guy. I also let my email run my to-do list. I let it run my day. So one of the strategies that I've employed is I don't look at email for the first 30 minutes of my day. I check my calendar, I get a coffee, I get my water. I try to do to-do lists. I set up my day. I think about what I need to get accomplished today, set some intentions for the day. I do that for the first 30 minutes and it grounds me. And then I get into my email because all of a sudden, if I'm checking my email the very first thing in the morning, That's making other people's actions, requests, responsibilities now my problem. All of a sudden, my day is out of control more often than not. Are these things that you can think about in your own day, in your own productivity, where you can change how you think about email? Communication in these boundary setting strategies will be really important, obviously. If your team, if your manager, if your executive have an expectation that you're going to respond to email right away, first thing in the morning, whatever, maybe a conversation around expectations and boundaries would be really valuable. You could also use your email signature to set some service level agreements is the word coming to mind for me, but your expectations, how often you reply to emails or when somebody can expect a response. You could just put at underneath your email signature, I check my email 3 times a day. Please expect a response within 24 hours or within 8 hours or whatever that looks like for you. You could also put it in your Teams notification. Teams has a status that you can update to say, those kinds of things. I only check my email 3 times a day or whatever. You could also do an autoresponder. We use our out of office autoresponders for vacations or when we're out of the office for the day. But why couldn't you also do that for day-to-day communications? I work with a client who every new day that I send her an email, her autoresponder comes back to say, thanks for your note. I'm working with clients all day. I've received your email, but it will be, 4 or 5 hours before I respond back to you. Just sets expectations, communicates out to people, sets those expectations. Are there ways you can think about doing that communication automatically in your own world, in your own workplace, amongst your team? If you're a leader, are there conversations you can have with your individual team members to help support their email productivity management? Because I tell you, the bad habits are costing us money. They're absolutely costing organizations real dollars, real dollars. 52% of us are checking our emails before we even get to the office. So we're stressed out before we even get there. 52% of us. 25% of generational, there's a generational impact here. Millennials and Gen Xers check emails on vacation. I'm for sure one of those. I'm never going to tell you what to do and what not to do. You get to manage your productivity the best way. I like checking email on vacation once a day. I like checking in the morning. I like to see what I've got going on, to see who's handling what, to see what's being handled without me. Not checking my email once a day on vacation stresses me out, and it makes me feel better to check it, but I limit it to 1 time a day. Is there something like that you can think about doing on your vacation? 21 minutes a day wasted on over checking email, which is a fascinating stat. I think that this would be much, much higher if you were to ask me. And on average, we are checking email 15 times a day, which means that 15 times a day, we are not doing something else, or we're getting out of that flow state. If we are focused on something and a notification comes in our, an email notification pops up in our window, all of a sudden, I'm not doing that. I'm not in that flow state anymore. I'm not focusing on that task I was doing. I'm distracted. Research also suggests that it takes between 15 and 21 minutes to get back into a task after we've been interrupted. So 15 times a day times even 15 minutes a day, whatever that math is, times 15, we're talking 225 minutes a day that is interrupted from checking email, where there may or may not be anything new, but it may be one of those 80% that doesn't matter, doesn't have any impact. So we are wasting tons and tons of time. So any of these strategies that you can put into place will absolutely save you minutes a day, which will add up to hours a week, which will add up to, you get the math. So I've talked a little bit about batch processing. This is the idea of uh, processing your emails particular times a day, whether that's first thing in the morning, just before lunch, and at the end of the day, whether it's 15 minutes at a time. One of the things that we teach in Inbox Zero in the 3-hour session is this idea of batch processing, using your inbox not as a place to store emails, but as a place to triage them. So the concept of inbox zero is that you will receive an email, you will process it at this block of time. So say it's the first hour of the day. Let's just assume that for the second hour of your day, because the first 30 minutes you're going to do other things, set your intention for the day. But then you're gonna process your emails for the first hour of the day. Okay, stay with me. So in this hour, our first email processing hour of the day, we're going to look at all of the emails that have come into our inbox overnight, and we're going to process them. We're not going to action them necessarily. We're going to process them. One of the things we teach in Inbox Zero is to create these 3 folders in your inbox. So if you have Outlook, Gmail, you can create these 3 folders, just 3. We're not talking multiple folders. They're just these 3 processing folders. One's called at action, one's called at read or read, and one called at waiting. Just a few folders for the stuff you want to keep. So then as you're going through your inbox, all the emails that have come in overnight, you are processing them into one of these folders, or you're deleting. I know, terrifying. The action folder is intended for an email you need to action. You're not going to action it yet. You're just going to put it into your action folder. You know you need to do something with that. Your read folder is stuff you need to read. Maybe you've been CC'd and you need some FYI. Maybe it's a newsletter. Maybe it's a document you got that you need to review. Something that you need to read that's going to take a fair bit of time to read. You're going to put it into your read folder. And then if there is an email where you're waiting on somebody else to take an action, you're going to put it into that waiting folder. Okay? Those are the 3 folders we're processing, or that we're going to use for our processing. So we have our emails. They've come in overnight and we're looking at this inbox. We're going to think through this decision tree. Is this email actionable? Do I have to do something with it? If it's no, and you can delete it, do that. If there's no action, but maybe you need to file it, maybe it's something you need to keep, maybe it's a document, whatever, you could file it in a folder structure you have, just in a folder, like in a file cabinet kind of folder. I don't use files. I don't use folder structure very efficiently. Lots of people do. Depending on who you are and how you set up your inbox, or your folder structure of your inbox, you could file it. But if it's not actionable, delete it, hopefully, or file it somewhere. If it is actionable and it's going to take you 2 minutes or less to do it, maybe it's a reply, maybe it's a whatever. If it's going to take you 2 minutes or less, then do it. And then file it away or delete it. If it's going to take you more than 2 minutes, are you going to defer it till later? Are you going to put it into one of those action or read folders, right? Something you need to action or something you need to read. Or can somebody else do it? If somebody else can do it, put it into that waiting folder. Clearly my my design of my slide is not very well done here, but you can read this wrapped text. If it's actionable and somebody else can do it, put it into that waiting folder. Don't action it yet unless it's going to take you 2 minutes or less, but if you can, put it into that waiting folder. You with me? You're going to do this for every email that's in your inbox until there's none left or that hour comes up. We're time blocking this and we're making some decisions around what to do with them. So in summary, all those words that I used, you're going to action it if it's going to take you 2 minutes or less. If you need to reread something, if it's going to take a longer action, you're going to put it into that read folder. And if it's something you're going to delegate, something you're waiting for other people to do, just put it into that waiting folder. And we're going to action them after from there. Okay? Questions about that? Please go ahead and put them in the chat. That was a lot of things in 25 minutes. I've shared with you what what the research and science is saying about emails and its effect on our productivity. And I've given you 5 tips on what to do with it, what you can do with it starting today. Minimize its impact. Only 20% of those emails are really important or urgent. Maybe we're going to turn off our notifications. Maybe we're going to work offline. Somehow we are going to minimize the impact of the distraction that email is taking for us. And then we're going to practice not checking. Maybe we're going to take email notifications off our phone. That's something that I've done. I have email on my phone, but I've turned my notifications off so that I have to go in and check them as opposed to seeing that notification go off all the time. Then we're going to batch process, pick some time of the day that we're going to action that inbox, not do anything with them, but just triage them. And then suggest that you use these 3 folders so that you can triage them into one of those 3 folders. And then once your inbox is clean, then you can go into each of those folders and do the things that are in there. When you have hundreds of thousands of emails in your inbox alone, that feels overwhelming. When you can put them into these folders and then go in and process just the ones in those folders, I promise you psychologically, it stops the overwhelm. That's it. It stops the overwhelm. So, which of these is resonating with you? What are you taking away from today? What is your action plan? Go ahead and write those down, put them in a chat. Yeah, Kate's talking about the volume of emails that you have to action for sure. Can you do those once every couple of hours, once an hour? Can you can you triage all of that other nonsense that comes into your email and just leave the ones that are orders to process and things like that? Giselle's talking about over the years have accumulated many hundreds of folders, and these new ones are 3 more. How do I know that I'm going to ever get to those? Um, if I think I'm understanding you correctly, how do you know you're ever going to get to those 3 new folders, the processing folders? Do you use your hundreds of folders? Like, are you in them all the time, or are there stuff you could probably archive? One of the things that I did, because the search functionality in Outlook and Gmail in most of the email service providers now is so good, I actually collapsed all my folders. I put them like into an archive. I don't know if this will work for you. This is a super scary thing to do, but I put it into an archive, one folder, so I didn't see them anymore. I knew they were there. I knew I could access them if I needed to through that search functionality, but just not having them there in my view was really helpful. And just having those 3 processing folders was really helpful just to minimize the overwhelm, minimize the effort. Just focus on those 3 and use the other ones like a filing cabinet. Even if you keep the multiple hundreds of folders, within it, it's like a real life filing cabinet, right? You close the drawers and you can't see all the files in there. It's kind of like the same thing. Just have a filing cabinet folder and, keep them in there as an idea. I don't know. If you do want to bring Think Productive, myself, any of our productivity ninjas in to do a 3-hour course of Inbox Zero, these are the kinds of tactical questions we solve right in that workshop. So Giselle, I would talk to you through exactly your scenario. You would get a chance to talk back, and we would solve that issue for you specifically right in those sessions. Because that's it. We really just have only scratched the surface of this topic. I talked really fast, 28 minutes. 28 minutes. We've covered a ton of things, but you haven't had time to ask your questions specific to you. We dive deep in the 3-hour session. So if this is something that would be useful for you, absolutely, please get in touch. Up to 15 people can participate in these workshops. We have lots of workshops related to productivity. This is just one of them, but absolutely, that is the way you get in touch with us. Hello at thinkproductivenorthamerica.com, thinkproductivena.com. We will love to have more conversations with you about how we can solve some of the productivity challenges, including email for you and for your organization. I promise you, it can be less overwhelming. It can be less nervous system regulation or dysregulation impactful. Please continue to join us for these skill booster sessions. We run them once a month for 25 minutes on different topics. You will have access to the Skill Booster Hub. You'll receive a follow-up email from us. I would really love your feedback. My boss, the main productivity ninja, would love your feedback. That is the link. Go ahead and scan the QR code. I will put the link in the chat here as well to share how this has been useful, how I might have missed the mark for you, and how we can best support you moving forward as well. Once you complete the feedback, that also gives you access to our resource library. It'll give you access to our resource library where you can download copies of Graham Alcott's book, where you can download all sorts of resources and tools to support. Kate, the lesson is the same whether you're in Canada, the US, or the UK. You absolutely can still have access to these resources. Thank you so much for being here. I am Lindsay Calder-Recknell, and it's been my pleasure to talk to you all about email today. Very happy that you were here. Thanks so much for joining me. Take good care.